What up, nerds? CJ here. Today, we're going to be doing the Alpha Beta Meta review with Bruce from Gold Eagle Cards, as well as Kevin Chen, the online Discord League Season 4 champion, as well as the author of that Avatar Rare list that's oh so spicy, Birds, Birds, Birds. I hope you guys enjoy.
What do you
Cool.
want?
Welcome. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves? You pros.
Hey, I'm Kevin. I play a lot of Out of Air. I won season 4 in League with Out of Air, and yeah, I played a lot with Bruce and CJ and PK. Miss you, by the way. Come back
Miss
soon.
PK.
All right. R.I.P. Okay.
Um, and yeah, so really excited today to chat about kind of the current alpha beta meta. Disclaimer, everything I say is just purely my own personal opinion, specifically towards the current meta. So yes, don't take anything I say out of context, you hear?
Kevin said that most players are bad, and that if he ever loses a game, it's RNG. He not skill.
That's exactly what I said.
Yeah, definitely.
Verbatim.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm Bruce. I'm the Golden Eagle guy who does stats and numbers and things.
Stats and numbers and things.
Yeah.
I love it. All right, and so basically, we just want to talk about like what the current meta is. And I know I posted on Reddit and kind of asked the community as well because I just wanted to see if there are any decks that like didn't come to my mind. And like I kind of mentioned, I started playing realistically in February of 2024. I looked actually with the Team Covenant subscriptions. I went back to my emails to find when I had like ordered those, and I saw that it was my first. Like I ordered the precons in January of 2024. So whenever they arrived, like late January or beginning of February is my first game of Sorcery. So you guys had seen the meta evolve a lot more since like Alpha and things like that. So I'll be curious to hear what you guys have to say. But basically, with Arthurian Legends coming out and like the meta about to get a huge shakeup, and we know at least one avatar has been spoiled, the Witch. So we know that there's like even more avatars and not just new cards to put into our current decks. I just kind of wanted to talk about like what the Alpha Beta meta was before everything kind of changed. And I figured with you guys kind of showing up and winning tournaments and, you know, showing up on the scene, I figured you guys would be great people to talk to about this. So where do we want to start? Should we start with what the public enemy number one, the ultimate menace should be? And no, it's not Roots. Oh,
Right.
really? It's Birds. Are you kidding me?
No, I think it's birds. I think
Birds
it's birds.
I
definitely.
think it's. I still think it's Roots. I think it's still Roots.
Hold on, Kevin. We can edit this out if you don't want to say it.
Sure.
What is your win percentage in League on Avatar of Air?
It's like, I think it's 80 something percent.
You know, my Roots win percentage is probably technically in League it is, but outside of League it's not 80 something percent.
But I think Roots. The problem I think with Roots is that it auto wins against lots of things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Fair.
Birds, I feel like, is very strong in that it has a good matchup against almost everything. So it's like, I would say it's like 60-40, but like you can always beat Birds. I feel like most decks has a pretty good chance of beating Bird. Okay, maybe not.
I
But
was like, sir, I have lost you far too many times for you to continue this line of thought.
but like it's not unwinnable, you know? Like it's not unwinnable. Whereas like I feel like some decks just can't win against Roots. Like you just, you know.
Yeah,
you
if you
kinda
don't
Roots.
prepare for roots, you will get stomped.
Yeah.
Yes.
If you don't prepare against birds, you can play differently and not get stomped. Like
I
you can
think
play.
so. Yeah.
All right, Roots is unhealthy for the game. Fine. I still think Avatar Bear is a much. I think it might not even be realized now, but I think it's becoming more and more meta warping. Roots is the most meta warping, right? Like everyone's playing Earth, nobody's playing Enchantress, nobody's playing Death Speaker right now. Like Roots meta warping. I'm not gonna pretend like it's not, but I think that Avatar of Air is so fast. Every time I think of a new deck, I have to think, can I survive against infinite 3-drops? Like, what do I do against highly immobile 3-power minions that are just never going to stop coming? And, like, I can't
Right,
build a
yeah.
deck that can't survive against that because Avatar of Air right now is probably the most popular deck being played. And it's so strong. Like, I've been calling it the red deck wins of sorcery because it's just the same. Like, somebody one time described red deck wins in Magic as just 40 lightning bolts, or like, you know, a couple of lands and the rest of your spells are lightning bolts, because all you really want to do is deal 3 to the face. And I feel like that's kind of how Avatar of Air is.
Yeah, a bit.
You tell me. You built the deck.
Well, playing into Avatar of Air, it feels so consistently. The movement of Avatar of Air, I think, just sends it over the top.
Yeah.
I think Kevin, we've had conversations in the past of like movement and airborne is better than people think, just because the ability it gives you to attack is so good.
Yes, airborne I think was slept on for a big part of the early meta in Alpha Beta. Like super slept on, like to the point where Plume Pegasus, people didn't play it. People were like, oh, it's
But
like
dude,
kind of like
that's an
expensive
ordinary.
boss trolls.
Yeah.
People like, oh, it's like boss trolls, but it costs 3 instead of 2. It's like, no, it's so much better than boss trolls.
Yeah. Well, especially
I
when you
think
can chuck it.
the strength of Avatar of Air comes from that it can lose against every deck, but it can also win against every deck. Like, there's no terrible matchups. The one deck I can think of that utterly annihilates it, and I'm happy saying this now because I don't really play that much anymore, but there is a very mid-rangey fire, air, death speaker deck that I think grinds against it very, very well. It basically just uses the Vile Imps, it uses the Clam of Harpies, packs all the healing, so aside from Divine Healing, but you have Angel's Eggs, and that kind of stuff, Dapper Vampires, and you're just slightly bigger than Avatar of Air, right? You have slightly bigger things. And I think that's where Avatar of Air struggles a bit. It's like, well, it's a classic thing. Like when aggro, if you go against the also not aggro, but like slightly bigger decks, like bigger minions, mid-range, right? But you don't want to go too mid-range, right? Like if you go too mid-range, then you're too slow, and then they kill you too quickly.
Yeah.
But yeah, that Deathspeaker deck, they run things like the Scarabs, they run their own Falconers who fetch Scarabs and their own Bats, they run the Hippogriffs, they run Clam of Harpies, and so now all your birds are kind of too small to really defy that. And then of course, late game Deathspeaker just completely takes over with their recursion and resource generation.
Is this like PK's Ruins deck or no?
Yes, yeah. I'm thinking of that Ruins deck. Because I have an abysmal win rate against it. I have like I think like 20% win rate against that deck.
Yeah.
But the problem with that deck is that then it loses to a bunch of other decks.
Yeah, Roots decimates that deck.
Yes. Whereas like so the things like the only decks that I think are consistently really strong against Avatar of Air loses to too many of the other big meta decks. And so it's not really worth playing those decks in a tournament setting. Whereas like Avatar of Air, like you have a good shot, you have like a 50-50 against basically every matchup. Which is what makes it, I think, strong. But I think that's kind of what makes Roots really strong as well, right? Roots, the worst version of Roots, right? Don't play the worst version of Roots. Play a good version of Roots. But if you play a good version of Roots, then you're like 50-50 against most decks. And probably like 80-20 against good matchups. And I think that's kind of similar to Avatar of Air in that regard, right?
But also, like, to that point of like 80-20 versus a lot of decks, like, so sorcery is so rock paper scissory. Like you're really good against some matchups, but you're kind of shit against others. Like the swings you have in matchups is so wide. Like you have the decks you're really good against, you're really good against them. But there's other decks that just wipe the floor with you. It feels very swingy.
Well, so I know CJ played a lot of MTG. Bruce, did you play much MTG?
Yeah, like 2 or 3 years.
2-3 years, yeah. I would say that sorcery is less polarizing than MTG, like in terms of the matchups. Well, at least in the best of one setting, right? I mean, MTG mitigates this because most constructed tournaments are best of 3. Well, so sideboarding becomes a really big deal. I think I agree in the fact because it's a best of one game, but in best of one MTG, I would say the matchups are much more polarizing.
Yeah. Okay, that's
like,
fair.
Sure.
Yeah, like
that's a really good comparison.
Yeah. Sorcery, like one of the really fantastic parts about the game is that so much of it is like player piloting, right? Like,
Yeah.
because it's not just like, oh, I can just slam my deck into your face. Oh, aside from Fury Road, that's kind of how the deck plays. But
Yeah.
but like even Fury Road, like
Yeah.
it definitely requires some skill to pilot. Whereas like I think MTG, the agency points are a bit more linear, right? Like there's fewer decision points.
Yeah, because it's not like you're either going face or you're going for,
Exactly.
like removal.
Like if you're playing red deck, and I think because I saw some of the GMs
People
that got rustled
offended.
by CJ's
They got offended. I was like, that's not what I meant.
CJ was like, oh, but like red deck wins, and then people were like, actually red deck wins. But I know what they mean, like because like red deck wins, it's very much like a lot of times you
go face.
You just play. Right? You put the cards play themselves, right?
Your cards out, right, and then you just go, right. But like that's not really what CJ meant. I think CJ just mean like in terms of the tempo and like that
you're just constantly doing pings 3, 2, 3, yeah.
Yeah. I will say that there is a bit of a different angle of attack with Out of Air, and people when they look at birds, I remember when I was chatting with what's the name of the original AOA player who piloted to, I think,
Jackson?
Yeah, Jackson.
Right?
Jackson.
Yes. I was chatting with him and a few of other AOA players, and one of their concerns is like, I have this crazy number of artifacts in my deck. Like, it's like 11 or something. I have so many. Oh, okay. It says 9 there. 11 because I ran 2 shackles for the...
Right, because you couldn't do Chaos Twisters.
Yes, because I couldn't do Chaos Twisters. Yeah. But for me, I think that's what makes it slightly different to Red Deck Wins. I try to have multiple angles of attack, which I think in that best of one setting in Sorcery is really important. Like you can try and hard commit to one strategy, but if you get countered, then you kind of just, you just lose. So the Maddening Bells, I'm attacking your mana. The Sinkos, I'm attacking your mana. The Devil's Egg, I'm attacking control decks that can remove my minions, right? The Rolling Boulder, that's it's a great finisher, but it's also a way to stop chump blockers. And Torch Armor Trinkets, it's there so I can play the mid-range game. I can trade up and play for value. So it's not all just go face, right? Because a lot of those cards there, like Maddening Bells, I'll admit, like it feels terrible to top deck late game sometimes, but it's still very important that you have those, I think, other angles to cover your weaknesses. And I feel like that's probably one of the reasons why the deck feels relatively consistent, because you'll probably draw into one of those answers at some point in time.
I think that's really interesting. I have not heard you describe AOA like that, of having multiple options and different lines of attack. And so if your main idea doesn't get countered, like I don't know, that's a little bit of a light bulb moment on my end.
It makes sense.
The mono air also, especially the New Mulligan rules, also makes that much easier to do, because your ability to mulligan spells is vastly increased. Since the mulligan change, I think multi-element decks, they have been punished a bit. Like you have to really consider what sites you mulligan. Whereas birds, I can usually like keep most of my sites and mulligan most of my spells to dig for the specific answers I need for any particular matchup. Yeah, I think for me the 2 secret bits that's one of the most skill intensive, and I'm sure the 2 of you can agree, is that and something that new players might not figure out is a site placement. I remember chatting with you ages ago, Bruce, in one of our games. Like this is like before I was even playing League and stuff. Well, maybe during when I was playing League, but I think site placement is like secretly one of the most skill testing elements of Sorcery, and it's so invisible.
It's the level up moment for sure, right?
Yes.
When you can get decent at understanding, like, oh, I should play on tempo, I should draw like sight versus spell, I should do X, Y, Z. But like when when you start like placing your sites, like I'm gonna place over here because I know that I run flanking maneuver, and if I can play my minions over here and I top deck that flanking maneuver, then that means I've got angles of attack here, here, and here.
Exactly.
And like
exactly. Yeah.
like I was joking with somebody about that. Like specifically, it was like I think it was Drew, and I was like, oh, I'll place my site here, obviously, and he was like, oh yeah, obviously, and I was like, well, it's the best choice. He's like, yeah. I'm like, I'm kidding, but also this one gives me the best like flanking maneuver, and if I top deck like a blink, it also gives me like a diagonal attack on you. Like no matter what, if I play here, I've got attacks on you no matter what I draw.
Yeah.
And that's like I think it's a pretty big level up moment. I think Kyle Scourge Ulters kind of said the same thing when we were talking. He was like, yeah, that's like when you get good is when you understand where to place sites.
Yeah, in my league game today, I think I won because my opponent played the way he played his sites. And we talked afterwards, like if you played a bottomless pit up one, he could have like had been moved onto my Amazon Warriors and pushed it into bottomless pit, but he played it to his back row, and like it's just those like really small placing decisions.
Yeah.
And I love Sorcery for it because it's something so unique to the game. It's 100% on you, right? Like you mess up, it's your it's
not Magic where you just play a land. It's like
exactly.
whatever, it's a land.
That. I think it's like one of the most chess-like aspects of the game. Like it's all about positioning. It's all about also knowing what your strategy is, what your opponent's strategy is, and I think as the game matures, more and more high-level players will unlock and discover better and better strategies. Like I fully believe that like the top level players currently doing by myself, like if I'm a top level player, like I'm gonna pale in comparison to like what the game will be like in like a year or two, like I'm gonna be like a old fossil at that point in terms of competitive, because like people are gonna, I think, really figure out cooler and cooler ways to use the sites and play the sites, which is really exciting.
Fully agree. I think the player base will get a lot better in 2 to 3 years
for sure.
You've already it's fascinating because you're already seeing that. I think like over the past few leagues, like everyone's been leveling up. Everyone's been like and it's cool because you see people like learning from each other and like getting better from each other, which is awesome.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
Nice. So we can agree that this is the most powerful deck in Sorcery right now?
No, I disagree.
I think, okay, says the author.
You both, hold on, I'm the third party here. You both created menaces of decks. You were both in the same camp. You were equal in my mind.
Can I just tell you that one of my favorite things ever, it was I was playing a lot with PK, and I hadn't played a lot with Kevin, but then I started playing with Kevin a couple games before his New Zealand Australian Championship that you ended up taking third in. And I remember that I played against your old version of Birds, and it ran like Dapple Vampires, and it had a little bit of a higher mana curve, and I like and I was just beating you, and it was great, and everything was great, and you were like, oh no, what do I do? And then I swear to God, you came back from that tournament with your Birds list. You're like, I just shaved off the top end and made it more consistent, and I lost to you like 5 games in a row, and this is like leading up to the Courtesan Cup, and I'm like, oh my god, don't tell people about this, like, oh my god. I was like, what do I do?
The NZ tournament was definitely like a leveling up moment for me because like, and it's cool. It's like the trial by fire thing. Once you play it's so different as well, right? Like the two of you've been in real life tournaments. It's so different compared to playing League. It's just like
the
pressure, the psychological aspect, even like the fatigue of like being there in person. Like, oh, I want to go home.
It's like midnight. You're like, play this boss troll, I guess.
Whatever.
And every like counterplay your opponent does actually is like so much more psychologically punishing, like demoralizing.
Yeah.
Like when you play in League, it's like, oh, they earthquake yourself, like, oh, okay, hey, cool. In like real life, after you played 4 games and you like, it's like this wins or loses, and then they earthquake you. You're like, I want to go home. Like this, like you just kind of want to scoop or something. But yeah, good times.
No, to speak to the in-person stuff, Courtesan Cup, like it was delayed. I don't think we played our first round until like 4 or 5 in the 3 in the afternoon.
Wow.
I think it was 3. It was 3 or 4.
I think it was like 4.
We were there until midnight.
It was rough.
Yeah.
And so I was playing my third or fourth round, and my brain is just fried. I'm done.
Yeah,
But
100%.
then
Yeah.
at Gen Con, I was like, all right, I know what's going to happen. I need to be hydrated. I need to be full. I need to have food. It's like in person is totally different than popping on, playing a game, and leaving.
Yeah.
Mm.
What'd you bring to Gen Con?
I don't know if I should say. No, I brought Ragnarok.
Yeah.
Yeah. I joined the bandwagon. I'm part of the problem.
Yeah.
And again, like Avatar Air is not broken at all because it didn't do.
There
Like,
wasn't
no
a
one
lot
played
of
it at
people
Gen
playing
Con.
Avatar.
Because
Bear.
nobody played it. I think it's
Like-
still busted.
I think Avatar of Air is like so hard to learn how to play properly. Like I like to joke if it's not you or Kevin or you or PK playing it, I'm not too worried.
I don't think it's that difficult because, like, I think a lot of my friends, like, I've given them the deck, and like, it takes like 2 or 3 games to adjust to it. But
Yeah,
old
totally.
decks too, right? And then they can play it fine, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I like to joke that like I don't play Avatar of Air because I can't lose with it. I pick up Kevin's deck and I'm like, this deck is too good. Oh, it's another 3-drop. Guess I'll murder you. But no, I think okay. So if I were ranking the top decks right now, I'd put Avatar of Air top. But I'm willing to be rebuffed.
I think it's interchangeable. You two are the
Yeah,
Ragnarok versus Birds. It's interchangeable. They're both number one. I think.
I think, well, the thing is, it's really hard, right? Because they, as you said before, Bruce, like the rock, paper, scissors thing. I feel like instead of saying the best deck, it's probably like, all right, what are the
it's
S tier decks?
and that's
Right,
what
what's the S tier deck?
that's a good way to do it.
And then I can agree. Both Ragnarok, Birds, Geomancer Roots, I would also put as S tier.
Really?
Yes,
I'm curious.
yeah,
I haven't played against it as much as you have. It just wrecks Ragnarok, but I feel like it's a terrible matchup for us. You think it's like pretty good in everything else in the meta?
Well, again, that's the thing. The meta is contextual because Ragnarok and Birds are being played, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Sea of Roots is being played. Therefore, Geomancer also goes up with them.
Okay.
If those aren't meta, then it doesn't go up as high. Even then, it's still really good. Like against a lot of decks, it's an auto win, right? I think Geomancer Roots is definitely up there. Sea of Roots and I mean,
you put
that's
Death Speaker up there?
Yeah.
I think Death Speaker is really good.
Hit me. We haven't heard from you enough. Bruce, why is Death Speaker an S tier deck? Because I disagree.
Hold on. Where did you guys go? There you go. Well, in my ranking, like we got Seer, we got Geomancer, we got Avatar of Air. Two of those 4 decks are Roots decks.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's to be said. I think Death Speaker has like it's so much value you get off of the minions you play. Just that fact alone makes it S tier.
Okay. But is there a specific deck that you think is like S tier in the meta right now, or not really?
Like you got the Jin combo, which is like the go-to Death Speaker. There's some people who play like, where is it? Like different variations of Death Speaker. I think just Death Speaker as a avatar or deck is one of the top. Maybe it's like 4th instead of 3rd or whatever. But
I think I fully agree. Death Speaker, if it's not S tier, then it's definitely A+ tier. But like it's like S- or A+ for me. And the reason why I would put Death Speaker slightly lower, the same reason I put Geomancer so high, is because it's not very good against Roots and not very good against Avatar of Air.
That's totally fair.
And again, it's contextual, right? Like in an isolated environment where those decks aren't being played as much, Death Speaker then becomes.
Well, I mean, like CJ, you were talking about the evolution of the meta. Like Death Speaker
that's what I was going to say.
Everywhere 6 to 8 months ago, 100%. Right? That's the deck to beat. Yeah. It was the Jin combo was like the combo deck of the format 6 months ago.
I think Death Speaker is an S tier avatar, and I think that if we're taking like the alpha beta meta, like up until I guess June, I think Death Speaker was definitely S. I think after June, Roots became so prevalent that it has dropped off to A. I still think it's good. I still think that it can win in the Earth variants, can win against Roots. Like maybe not all the time, but I think that they can win against Roots. So I think that it could be. It's definitely an A tier deck. I just think that at the end of beta meta, going into Arthurian Legends, it kind of ended as A, but I think prior to that, it was definitely like the champion that got
100%,
knocked off the throne.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, like if you want to take like the history of the game, then Avatar of Air wouldn't even be an S tier, right? Avatar
Oh,
of Air
yeah.
would be like it's
Yeah.
rising up, but it's like for the longest time it was like what C tier, like people just didn't even think about it.
Nobody was really playing it.
Well, it's because nobody understood movement. People weren't
And
good enough to
Airborne,
understand movement.
how broken Airborne is.
Yeah, yeah.
Airborne
And
is-
the two of them combined.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's nutty.
Also, air cards in general, I think, are probably this. You could argue
Pushed?
one of the strongest
Mhm.
cards. Towers are very powerful. Towers,
That's
are
not
very,
Draw.
Towers are the best sight.
Yeah.
Towers are very powerful.
And they have
And the
draw.
draw.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. But it's funny because like Avatar doesn't use any of the draw at all, right?
No.
I use the towers, but then the other decks use the draw. So like some like random combination of air cards, like chuck in a grapple shot, chuck in a Jin, chuck in summoning sphere, Gaia hippogriffs, blink, lightning bolt, you know, and then like all right, that's just a bunch of very good
That'll work.
cards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, interestingly, I got the alpha precons recently, and I have a hard time not wanting to play that Avatar of Air one because I don't care that the spells aren't great, right? Like, I'm like, why am I in this, like, aggro shell with snow leopards and nightmares, right? I'm like, what is happening here? But it's so fun. So, yeah.
It really is fun. And that's my biggest proponent of Avatar of Air, is that it's fun to play. And for the most part, unless you get veiled, it's fairly fun to play against.
Yeah, no, it's
so, yeah.
demoralizing to lose 5 games in a row, and I would know, but it's not oppressive like Roots is. When I like joke that Roots is bad for the game, it's like only like a quarter joke and 75% like, yeah, it's not great. All right,
You want
we got
to talk
some
about a
here.
really old deck? Is Burn. Like I remember when
I was not around for this.
I was not around for this.
so right before beta released, I remember running into Burn everywhere from Hane. Hane created this Burn list with thunderstorms and like firebolts. There's no minions.
None?
It's just
Wow.
just
A
straight
couple
face.
draw. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It loses the healing really easily, but
Mm.
this was like my first into the sorcery meta of like getting absolutely wrecked. I was like, what am I supposed
This
to do?
is fascinating. I've never seen this before. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is fascinating.
Yeah, like I had a bunch of. I remember playing into it, and it's like I have all these removal spells I have nothing to do with. It's like, what is going on? How am I losing?
Yeah.
This is interesting. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can see this was 2 years ago.
Yeah. Wow.
So there used to be a burn list that was really punishing with like thunderstorms and a bunch of ramp, and you just.
You're running 2 disenchants?
This is 2 years ago.
You madman?
Yeah,
There's some chance.
Meteor shower.
yeah.
You got to
Because this-
9 mana?
No, the
You're playing,
mixes.
you're playing obelisk and mixes.
You got to
and
6
horrors.
mana? Okay, obelisk?
Yeah.
Wow, what is this?
Mm,
It's wild.
that's really interesting. To be fair, I have seen Meteor Shower used relatively effectively in some control
In
lists.
Oh, okay.
Hey, and can control this as well. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, Crater Rise is being played, right? People can
Yeah.
play. Like you can get to Crater Rise, you can get to Meteor Shower.
Crater Rise is my nightmare. Don't
Yeah.
give me
Crater Rise.
flashbacks of my. Did I tell you about my? It was so funny. The day I posted Never Lose to Roots Again with my Wild Wild West deck, I played in league against Geomancer Roots, and I didn't get Roots, but I did have my first loss against Roots, and it was he went like turn 1, turn 2, he got like I don't know Land Surveyor and like a Foot Soldier. And then my whole deck is just ramp and then drop fatties. And he was like, cool, turn 3 bury, turn 4 cave in, turn 5 cave in, turn 6 bury, turn 7 cave in, turn 8 craterize, turn 9 craterize. I win. I was like,
What happened to all my minions?
absolutely decimating.
Speaking of Craterize, what do you think of Air Earth Ramp, like as a shell going into Arthurian Legends? Maybe Kevin, but CJ.
I love it. And I think it's only getting better. I think that Frontier Settlers was kind of like an interesting addition there. I don't know if that's in this one. But
No, this is the 7-0 in Quarters and Cup.
is it
Swiss.
really?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, Boss Trolls. Just skip them. No, my more recent deck is just like ramp and fatties, and it's surprisingly effective, but it does lose to the hyper aggression of birds can get under it for sure. And the like I think that I haven't played against many Death Speakers. I think I only played against like one and it went fine. But I think that enough chump blockers can be a problem.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it's pretty powerful. You just lose to like the most aggressive decks. I don't have any healing in this version, but I don't know. It could probably be buffed. But I do honestly think that the more powerful minions we get, the better this deck will get. Like there are multiple knights that were spoiled that are Earth Air. Wyvern I think is a slam dunk for this deck.
Slam duck. Yeah.
Slam duck, yeah. And then I was playing a lot of duck game earlier, to be honest. And then I think that like, especially if we get some sort of like lifelink, right? Like I think there was, is it Sir Galahad?
Galahad
Sir Galahad
3/6.
He's going to be able to heal you. I think that this deck, when you're able to heal past the aggro, is actually insane. So I think that that'll make it pretty strong.
Yeah. No, I think yeah, adding some healing to this will
think
just help that early.
Air
early
and
game.
Earth just go together really well. It's just fat bodies and movement and grapple shot.
They complement each other's weaknesses, right? Earth has no movement, but has the best bodies. Air has bad bodies, but it has the best movement.
Yeah.
And if you have both, then you have a very strong board state, which something I really enjoy about Sorcery is that it focuses a lot on the board state quite a bit. Naturally, because like the game, for me, at its peak is when you have an interesting realm full of interesting sites, interesting minions, and then it becomes a puzzle for both players, right? It's those cool MTG days where it's like, oh, figure out lethal this turn type thing. Like
I'm still waiting for people to send me those, and they won't.
Yeah, like that's like peak Sorcery, right? Peak Sorcery is like figure out how to duel your opponent. Like, all right, I have like flanking maneuver and I have rolling boulder. I was like lightning bolt and grapple shot, and then I have like this guy hippogriffs over here. Like, oh, how do I do that? It's what I really enjoy playing After of Air, and I think, yeah, I never could quite get into Control. I played a lot of Control in MTG, but I didn't play too much Control in Sorcery just because it feels a bit. It kind of like, yeah, it's like
It's missing something.
It's missing something. Like the positional part is just like, Earthquake, you don't really care, right? Like you respond to how your opponents do their cool positioning thing, but you kind of just like, I do the thing. And like, yeah, Crater Rise is like, I just drop a meteor on your head. Doesn't matter where you are, it's gonna happen.
Yeah, there's no way stopping that. There's no like. It just has to happen. Like you can you can destroy their sites, kind of screw them on mana. You can kind of like control them that way, but there's no way of stopping them from doing.
Oh,
something.
You're at 8 mana. God, I hope you didn't draw it.
Yeah.
Like what we're seeing with Witch, where it can't like taxes them one, or like you can't play this certain spell like that. Maybe is somewhere like Control goes into Sorcery in the future, but yeah, I know Moth and Adam or versus Solon are doing well with the Elementalist Control list, so who knows?
It's cool. It's actually a pretty decent list. So we were talking about the meta. So if we're talking about the Sorcerer as like where it's at, what do you think is the strongest Sorcerer deck, and where is it? I would say it's A, but what do you think is the strongest Sorcerer?
Fury Road. It's up there.
I think Fury Road's up there. I think Air Earth for me is stronger, but
yeah,
Fury Road was definitely. If we're
Earth.
talking about the beta meta, Fury Road was like meta defining, right? Didn't that win in like November or something?
Yep.
I feel like when I started like researching Sorcery and ordering stuff, it was just like Fury Road. That's the deck, and I was like,
it's a deck to beat. It's a deck to beat, right? Like you always have to ask yourself, can my deck survive Fury Road?
Yeah. But that was like that's like when I entered the game, was like Fury Road was the stuff. That was the deck.
Yes.
And I was like, wow.
Yeah.
The Coruscant Cup qualifier at Game Grove, I think over 50% of the play field was some kind of variation of Fury Road. I forget when exactly what that was, but like it's fallen off since the meta has shifted to Roots and other things, but I think it still can just win.
Yeah, it's a good deck. Yeah. It's a good deck made up of good mana efficient minions with upside.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It has the resiliency of like earth, but also like just hard burn with fire. And yeah, it's hard to like outvalue, right? Like you can't really outvalue 3 rogue unless you're playing like Death Speaker, maybe.
You have to go over the top. You have to play bigger
Yeah.
things they can't deal with.
Yeah. Cool.
And healing.
What else? Oh, I feel like we talked about how problematic Ragnarok was, but we didn't really talk about it. But like for meta wise, I don't know. I feel like it just, for everybody who's wondering why this deck is so problematic, it's because the consistency of hitting Roots of Yggdrasil, blowing up the realm, and having a bedrock on turn 5, and being able to drop an Amazon Warrior. Any deck that is slow is instantly negated. In the Courtesan Cup, I played against multiple Death Speakers, and it was basically like, oh, we're at 5 mana. I know next turn you can do either Jin, or you can do like Grandmaster Wizard, fill your hand, do all these insane things. I'm just going to set you back to 0. I will have 1 mana, and I have a 5 power minion. So it's time to just beat you to death while you're trying to like recover. And so it's in the current meta of like Avatar Bear and Geomancer Roots, it's actually suffering. But before Roots was like the hotness, it kind of just like swept everybody else.
How would you say Ragnarok matches up against other Seer Roots decks and Geomancer Roots decks?
Geomancer Roots decks is almost unwinnable.
Yeah, that's a rough one.
Yeah, it's awful because they have such massive card advantage in the early game, but you are trying to blow Roots early and make like any other deck. If you have card advantage in the early game, like Pathfinder, for example. Actually, Pathfinder's a bad example. But any other deck that's getting early game at card advantage and I'm popping Roots, you don't have any sights in hand, so you are then instead of drawing new gas, you're just drawing sights. Geomancer is a bad matchup because they just draw
They
spells.
don't have to do that, right?
And then you pop Roots, and they just keep drawing spells because they're just replacing rubble.
Yeah, right.
And they also have bedrocks, and they have a lot of healing, and they have a lot of chump blockers. So like even if they didn't heal and they didn't have bedrock and they didn't like, they're like, okay, cool, Humble Village, make a chump blocker. Your 5 power Amazon Warrior doesn't hit me. It's actually like the perfect counter to Seer Roots.
So yeah, that's why I was like honestly like surprised that you don't rank Geomancer as like S tier, because I think
it destroys me, but I didn't think it beat everybody else.
It's very good against After of L. I think it destroys Seer Roots, right? It destroys Roots that's not another Geomancer, right? Because they don't get hurt by Roots so much. They destroy Death Speaker, which is the other S tier kind of, avatar. I think, I'm trying to think of one deck that, consistently hoses them, Out of Earth, right? Out of Earth is quite big.
It just blows, yeah.
But that's, really the main matchup, I think, that they suffer from. I think any deck that runs, fairly low to the ground, Out of Air, some of the aggro sorcerer decks.
I think Goblins destroys Geomancer.
Can beat Geomancer, but that's why I rate them so highly. It's they are so good against a lot of the other S tier ranks that, again, the context of the meta, that puts them up there as well.
Yeah, I don't understand why this is so good. I look at this and I'm like, all right, it's playing some big minions, and you're winning a card advantage in the ability to play a site and draw a card.
It's grindy, and it has inevitability.
Yeah.
Right? So, you've got 4 Land Surveyors, Ascent Hounds, 3 Autumn Unicorns, a Cave Trolls, 3 Root Spiders. That's all under 3, plus your humble villages are getting under 3. And then you've got 3 Cave-Ins, 2 Buries, 1 Bury. Oh, okay, the list I was against had more than 1, but that's fine. So you've got 4 easy removal spells, you've got 2 Earthquakes, you've got Border Militia to just make more chump. You're just like your early game is just stalling, and your late game is just what are you going to do against my Midlam army? Okay, I kill it. Cool, I just make a boatload more dudes. Okay, Craterize, Gigantism, anything, King of the Realm.
It's very hard to aggro into. It's actually quite hard. Unless you're playing very the fastest aggro decks, you can't really aggro it. You can't play control against it.
No.
Because Roots destroy all control decks. And mid range, if they have the right removal spells, then that also locks you out, right?
Like me.
Yeah, the only deck I think So like Battle Mage and I think Out of Earth is like the few decks that can negate a lot of its strategies.
Avatar of
Because
Earth can win against this thing on like turn 5. It's just
Yeah.
like it.
Yeah.
I've done a couple games like that, and it's just it's movement. Blink my avatar, just beat. Just
Hit for
beat.
10.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, this is kind of funny topic. What is the two of you's? I mean, it's probably also your least favorite card, but like, what is the card you think is the single most broken in the game?
Grapple shot.
Grapple shot.
I think it's Roots because it's a board wipe, it's a reset, it's free, right? Like in something
Yes.
else, it's Armageddon plus Supreme Verdict for free that you can build your deck around.
I would agree on Roots, but there is the thing of like, well, it's a unique. So, I mean, the Atlas thing,
I think
but
the Atlas like should be like 25 or 30, just to like
Mm.
lower that consistency of any kind of problematic unique land. Like that's gonna be.
I feel like Roots is definitely up there, so that's a really good pick. Grapple shot, I agree, it is very, very strong.
The fact it's ordinary. If it was
Common
exceptional, I
sense
think it'd be
is
fine.
also, I think common sense
Yeah.
though also enables a lot
Common
of things to
sense,
being
yeah.
broken, right? Because like
I would say, yeah, like, but that's the thing. It's like, is grapple shot the broken thing, or is it common sense that's the broken
exactly
thing?
because it's also like, okay, how many we don't have to pull this up exactly, but how many minions in Avatar of Air are common that are doing work, right? You're talking about how like honestly I've played that deck a number of times, and when you draw a Plume Pegasus, you're happy. You're like, great,
Yes,
this is one of my
yeah.
best minions. And same thing with Ragnarok. I think I have like, I don't know, 20 targets with common sense.
Yeah, you can go get whatever you want.
You can get anything in that deck, right? Sandworms, Sandworms for Trojan Cavalry, Amazon Warriors,
Val Imps.
File Imps for the kill
Good old
spell.
Val Imps.
Yeah. Firebolts. Yeah, anything. So it is common sense is like tutors are always strong, but when you're having
Yes.
multiple tutors getting some of the best cards in your deck, and the fact that like unlike in Magic, common doesn't mean bad.
No.
Right?
No.
Like some of the like grapple shot. Grapple shot is busted. It's common.
So I'm gonna preface this by saying that, like, despite like, oh my god, this card is OP. Sorcery has legitimately the most diverse and fun metagame for a core set of any game I have ever played.
And
Hands
the
down.
evolution it has in the last
It's
year and a half is
crazy.
so
The meta
cool.
hasn't even been solved, right? Like,
Yeah.
I feel like we might be getting to some really strong decks, like the Roots decks, Out of Air decks. Like, they are very, very strong, but like people are still finding ways to, like, I just dropped out of League, right? Like, my Out of Air deck just lost, I think, quite a few games in the top cut, right? Like a bunch of Out of Air decks got dropped out.
Bruce did it. It was Bruce.
So yeah, I want to just preface that by saying, like, it's still like a super awesome game. And some of the things that are like broken, they are broken, but they also shape the meta in like some really cool ways. Like, it gives context to the cards a lot. Like Deserts, for instance, completely like destroys 1-power minions, right?
Yeah.
But then you really have to think about like the cost of those 1-power minions, right? Of deck building wise. Death Speaker, same way. Genesis effects, you have to really think about, do I want a Genesis effect in my deck?
Because
About
it feeds
Imps,
your opponent.
2-power minions, right? Now you're like, okay, and then so like what I'm trying to get at is like every minion, they might be super simple. You look at a Plume Pegasus or Boss Troll, but there's so much like hidden behind like that's very simple, like 3 cost, 3 power airborne. Like there's so much depth to just like such a
Single
simple
threshold's such a big deal too.
and threshold as well, right? Like, so it's really fascinating how the game has kind of this depth that's created from some of those cards. Oh, anyway, skipping ahead a bit, the card that I think is just like the most like broken. It's kind of I feel like it's so broken that it's like gaslit everyone to thinking it's fine because like you're so used to it. You're like, oh, that's just how it is. Is Root Spiders. I think Root Spiders.
Oh,
like,
obvious.
that's
No,
the
everyone
most, like,
ban Root Spider.
like it's like it's just like what like
No, I
it's
agree.
so
What is this?
so
But I
This is
agree.
the
strong. Like,
this is the tier list I did. Like Root
Oh, I
Spider.
remember.
okay,
I did watch this,
Right.
but
Yeah, I said Root Spider is the best minion in the game.
I
Yeah.
agree. No, I
I would
agree.
argue it might be one of the best cards in the game. Like,
It's insane.
common sense definitely up there as well, right?
I think
And as the game evolves, it's going to get better and better. But
I think I didn't pick Root Spider is because I played into your Avatar of Air so much, and you have bats that
Yeah.
perfectly deal with Spider.
Yeah,
yeah,
Yeah, but I agree with you.
That's
Root
disgusting.
Spider is probably broken. Yeah,
definitely broken.
it's just one of those things where it's like you either have interaction for it or you don't, and
Yeah.
if you don't, then have
it wins
fun.
you. Well, how many times have Avatar of Earth players got on top of a Root Spider? It's like, what are you gonna do about it?
Yeah, and it's just like,
Mhm.
oh, I can't defend, right? Like,
Yeah.
okay, I guess you
I
punch me
think-
for 8 damage.
In the future, I think this disabling effect should be like Stone Gaze Gorgons of like minions at rest. Just that.
Yes,
that-
like yes, minions
Yeah.
at rest,
Yeah.
or like I don't know, just like ways so you can interact with the thing that's disabling the thing. Because
Burrowing is
you can't.
is also so airborne is insane and it was slept on and it's really good. I think burrowing though is like really like what do you
burrowing's just
even do against a burrowing themed deck, right? If it's burrowing themed in some sort of
I
stall
think-
tactic, you're like, I don't know what to do against this. Like, can't interact
like,
with anything.
how are you winning with burrowing? Like,
Well, so
Bur-
that's why it's not
you
a
just
deck
play a
yet.
bunch of minions. Like it's you don't have the pressure you need to win.
Yeah,
But the more burrowing minions get made, especially if they get to be made more powerful, I think that would actually not be a bad. So, what is premium removal in sorcery right now? It's
Bury Earthquake.
bury.
earthquake.
What
yeah.
else is there? Yeah, there's burn. But if you ever had like a five power minion with burrowing, you don't even need to use burrowing. You're just like, oh, this is my semi hexproof minion.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like, go ahead and
that's
hit
true.
me. I don't
Oh,
care.
speaking of, so that's evasion, right? Like
Yeah.
built-in evasion, like your headless haunts or some
Mhm.
other things that make it hard for that minion to be removed is really good.
Yeah, and that's another thing about
Burrowing is
airborne.
that.
Airborne, you can't just like ping it with a Violent and trade your foot shoulder into it, right? That's what you can't
You
get
can't
rid of
attack
your,
it.
Yeah, you're
It
like,
has evasion, right?
damn. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the other thing though. We were talking about like the drawback or like one of the perks about Plume Pegasus being the single threshold, but like we were talking about Sir Pellis this morning, and I was like, playing this card on curve will be very difficult because it's like 2 water 1 air, I think. But I was like, it is a submerge, moves freely, 4/3. That's insane. Like if you can play that on turn 3, that's insane.
Because evasion, right?
Because evasion and because it's a above rate body. I'm excited. Anyway, before we're still trying to kind of stick to the meta thing here. But
Yeah, anything that's beyond alpha beta, I'm just like,
no, I know. That's fair. But I was like, before we move on to the next like avatar or whatever, I do want to hear what your thoughts are on these Avatar of Air multicolored decks that are springing up, specifically Fire.
yeah, Avatar of Air, I think Fire, I feel like a lot of these things are meta cores, right? Like, it's really good, especially because like there's so many, like you look at all those fire spells, they're 1 threshold. And they're very good fire spells.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess my main thing for that is just always like you lose a bit of defense power for attack power. You know, like you're just trading that up. So it's not worse, it's not better, it's just different. And the question is like, what are your matchups, right? Like I could definitely see this destroying my Avatar of Air deck, like the fire.
I was going to say in the mirror, I like Avatar
Yes.
Air Fire more than just mono
because
air.
fire is so good against air, right? Like it's kind of like that funny rock paper scissors thing, right? So yeah, this is very good against the air version, but I can see this being much worse against like more mid-rangey decks, right? Heck, Ragnarok. I feel like this is probably not as good against Ragnarok
I didn't play
because
against
you're
it.
trading the bottomless pits, right? This
Mhm.
you can't afford the bottomless pits anymore.
Mhm.
Your fire sites, your deserts, you can't defend, right? And that's one of the strengths of Out of Air is that you can defend all your sites. All your sites you can defend because they either have air threshold or they're like a bottomless pit. So yeah, I I think that's really cool. I think air water out of air. I tried making a funny like deck where I use Mariner's Curse, and then I can like toss you into my Mariner's Curse, like
Oh
haha.
yeah, we played that. You're a
Yeah,
monster. You equipped your stupid porcupine pufferfish and gave it
yeah,
grapple
porcupine
shot and
pufferfish,
whirling blades and just
whirling blades.
ruined my
It's
day.
really funny. It was really funny. And of course, air earth, the classic combo.
Yeah.
Then you get those really big beefy minions, and it's funny because I feel like the air earth version, in theory, it sounds like, oh, that sounds really strong.
Throw your
But then in
pudge
practice,
butcher?
whenever I play it, like it's always like really awkward.
Mhm.
And I think the reason is because all those minions that you do want are 2 earth threshold, and that makes it just like exponentially harder.
I agree. I tried to making that a while ago, and I was like, I'm gonna push my Pudge Butcher. My Dalcian Phalanx has no downside.
This is gonna be great.
Amazing. And it was like,
It's gonna
no,
be great.
it's pretty mediocre.
The threshold system is so interesting as well in Sorcery, right? Because it's like it's people like the obvious analogy is the MTG like color like land stuff, but it's so different. It is so different.
Yeah. Mhm.
And the way it scales is also very different. Like 0 to 1 is exponentially high, right? But then 1 to 2 is also like a really big difference, and then 2 to 3 is also a really big difference. So it's kind of like the 1 power, 2 power, 3 power minion demarcation. Like, there's a lot of texture there, which makes the game really good. I think.
Yeah, I agree. All right, Bruce, what do we have next?
Battle Mage, as a general.
It's an interesting one too, because I think I rate it a little low because it's an easy matchup for Ragnarok, and that's like most of my experience. But it won that West Virginia tournament. Count Tolstoy always shows up and does well. There's like, it's got range.
When I was figuring out a deck to play before Avatar of Earth, I was playing around with Battle Mage. It is a razor's edge kind of deck. You don't get the healing of Earth. Like, you're up in the opponent's business, so they have an easy line of attack. You do have some card advantage with the Battle Mage, and like I think this is the best version of Battle Mage with like shrinks and polymorphs, where you can get those free like cantrip draws almost off your spells. But
yeah, shrink my Amazon Warriors, draw a card.
It is so razor edgy. If somebody plays a divine healing heal for you just blanked three turns of Battle Mage attacks. Like I have it previously. I have it at B because like there we go. Where it's just like it's really good, but it just loses so easily. Like if you don't do everything perfectly, or if you have an awkward draw, it just goes.
Yeah, like I definitely see it similar to AOA in that like you have to pilot it on like razor's edge. Like you have to know like exactly the push pull moment for it. But like even more extreme. Like it's like even more extreme, right? Because Battle Mage, I think you have one super important decision you have to make every game, and that's when do I go in? When do I commit?
Yep.
And most of the time, once you go in, there's no going out. Right? Like you're in there. Like you can't just like sit on your opponent's side. It's like, all right, I tap, play a side. Like
AOA gets to like bounce in, bounce out.
Yes, AOA. Like all right, sometimes you can like take a turn off. Battle Mage is like you're going all in. I still think it's really really good. Right? Like it's scary. Right? Like if you ever had a Battle Mage beat your face in on like turn 3, like oh my goodness, what do I do?
Like grapple shot right into you and deal 6 on turn 4, and
you're
then
yeah. I feel like honestly, Battle Mage feels almost even more like Red Deck wins in that strategy.
Sure.
Because it is very all in. Like you have one goal and one goal only, and you have no out, right? So it's the same as Red Deck wins in that like once you're out of gas, you're out of gas. Like I hate scooping in Sorcery because the game I feel like has a lot more it has a lot more nuance than MTG. But like I will happily scoop in MTG because like there are games where like they're playing like Azorius Control, they have 7 mana, I have no cards in hand, they have like 12 health. Like what are you gonna do as a Red Deck wins player? You scoop. But yeah, in some Battle Mage games I've played, like it does feel a bit like that. It's like, yep, I've got nothing. Like there's no single draw in the game I can take that is gonna win me the game.
I think that's fair. Yeah. So I don't know. I kind of agree. It's my first time ever playing against a Battle Mage was actually in a sealed tournament, which was for the Courtesan Cup qualifier in Baltimore. And I think it was like my 15th game ever playing. And I just remember it was against Rob, the guy I actually played in the Courtesan Cup finals. So like he played me months and months and months before then, and it was like turn 3, grapple shot, smack you for 6. I was like, oh no, what do I do? Yeah, and he just like absolutely wiped the floor with me, and I was like, what is this avatar? Is this broken? Like, how do you deal with this?
Yeah. Like if you play 4 power minions and Battle Mage doesn't play shrinks or like these water spells, like what are they gonna do?
I agree.
Yeah.
That's why I had it low, is because my most experience against Battle Mage was with Ragnarok, and I think I'm like 25-2 against Battle Mage, because it's like, all right, you came to my sites, I don't even have to worry about getting to you. I'll just blow everything up and drop on Amazon. Like, hit me or don't.
It's really funny because I feel like actually all 3 of us, right? Because like Bruce, you play a lot of Out of Earth. I played literally only Out of Air. CJ plays a lot of his Roots deck. All our perceptions are like colored very heavily on this.
Yeah,
right? Like,
we're not Enchantress
it's
players.
It's that classic story of like the 3 blind men like touching an elephant, and they're like, "Oh, it's like a snake because it's a long." And then someone else touching the trunk. It's a tree. This is us with the Sorcery meta right now. By the way,
Yeah.
Anyone watching?
Yeah.
Like we're like, no.
This deck sucks.
Geomancer is broken. Like no. Geomancer sucks. It's because that's what's happening.
Yeah, because we're not. I mean, you know what's weird though is like in Magic, I played everything, right? Like I played aggro, I played, control, I played mid range, I played combo. Sorcery, it's like I've played Battle Mage twice. I played Enchantress twice, and I was like, yeah, this is
because avatars are so powerful at like capturing that. Like this is like my identity, right? This is like my character. This is who I.
Well, that's why Commander's so big, right? It's like
exactly. Right? Like,
but I had like 30 Commander decks. I'm still like, I played Enchantress twice, and I was like, hell no. Nope. Stop for me.
That's fair.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Like, to be fair, I've not played Battle Mage or Enchantress very much. I played almost everything else, but Battle Mage and Enchantress.
I think that's like me with Avatar of Fire. Like, I played a few games, and I was just like, not for me.
And then to Battle Mage's credit, there was a 1K.
Sorry, the joke is that Avatar of Fire is not very playable.
No, it's S tier. There was a 1K tournament in West Virginia, Game Grove, where like a quarter of the field was Battle Mage players, and a Battle Mage player did end up winning it, I think. I have to check on that.
They said that there was 0 roots, though, and I'm not sure if anyone played. Yeah. I think one person played Avatar of Air.
I think it was a very weird meta at that event because there was 14 people. Yeah. But like Battle Mage, not into roots, not into Avatar of Earth, not into its counters, is very good. Like, but that's also a lot of decks.
Yeah, I'd agree. No, I think but to be fair, like the people who we play, like the only people who I have played who play Battle Mage are also some of like the best Battle Mage. Like I've got a million games in against like James and against Count Tolstoy, and like those guys like consistently win tournaments. Or like top 8 tournaments. Yeah, or like top 8 tournaments with their Battle Mage. So like I'm like, yeah, this is terrifying, and I would never go against it with anything but Ragnarok because like screw that.
Like 6th place, day 1. Like out of how many people were at the Courtesan Cup?
96.
Yeah, like
pretty good.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
But also, we all 3 say it kind of sucks. So.
Well, just don't play against those specific decks.
Yeah.
We haven't even talked about Avatar of Earth yet.
All right, Avatar of Earth. I'm partial to the Fire Splash just because that's what I did, but yeah. I think Avatar of Air, or with air in it, is the movement you get is so big with Avatar of Earth. You get to 4 or 5 power, you blink up, you start attacking, and it just steamrolls.
I like the air version better.
Yep.
I like the fire version better.
Ooh.
But again, the 3 blind men, that's because I play birds, and fire's better against me.
Yeah.
But I do think that Fire also just has some really good mid-rangey minions, and it sort of diversifies your threats a bit. I guess my concern, because I did actually end up playing quite a bit of my my partner. She really enjoys playing After of Earth, and so she was playing your list, Bruce, for a while, the Fire Earth one, and it's good. It's really good. The fire spells in it because you lose some of the mobility, but fire has some mobility as well.
Yeah,
Right?
with Blaze and yeah.
Blaze, like
Mad
Blaze
dash.
is mad dash.
Well, I think air has just more mobility, so that's
Yes,
why
it
I
has
put it
more
higher.
mobility. Yeah.
I think that the one thing. Oh, I apologize.
Oh no. But yeah, like the things like the air, like you use it for the mobility, but you can only use it just for mobility. Whereas fire, you get worse mobility, but some mobility. But then you also get some amazing minions. You get the kobolds, you get the imps, right? You get the Fury
You
Road
get some good
package,
fire removal,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
right? And that's why I like that one.
I was gonna say I do like the fire. So one of the problems with Avatar of Earth is chump blockers, right? And fire takes care of that, right?
That's
Because
right.
like,
Yeah.
that's
That's exactly why that deck came about. Is like I just kept like there's too much stuff in the way, and it's like
Yeah.
fire is
Yes.
really good at removing stuff.
Yeah. So like if Death Speaker were more, I think air is better now because Death Speaker is not so prevalent. Geomancer does do a lot of chump blockers, but like,
But you win against
you
that
win
anyway.
anyway. So that's why I think the air version is better in this meta. But I
Yeah,
do
that
think
makes
that
sense.
when Death Speaker is everywhere, that the fire version was better because, like, they just put down these 1 power minions, and you're like, okay, I tried to hit you for 10. They're like, yeah, chump block, and you're like, great. And they're like, thanks for putting that in the graveyard, by the way. Recur it, get value. And you're like, oh god, you're just feeding their engine without even getting damage in. So I think that
Yeah.
you made a good meta call, and that the fire version was better, and now in the current meta, it's the air.
Yeah.
And we say this
Well,
is A tier?
It is also better against birds though, the fire version. So if
Yeah.
you run up against a lot of birds, then I think the fire earth version is better. Because I remember playing against Bruce for like a bunch of games when you were still running the earth air after earth, and I would win like quite consistently against you. But then you swapped over to the earth fire deck, and then suddenly I was like losing like all my games basically.
It definitely it was definitely a better win rate with the fire version.
Much better, much.
I seeing a bottomless pit on your side. It's like forward is like, oh, like well, I just can attack that for free almost.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm interested. You have both Elementalist and Pathfinder as A.
Elementalist, I think, going into Arthurian Legends with all the multicolor craziness, and then the reason that I have it in A is because Moth and the control version of it it's so annoying. I don't know how much you played into it, but like the Mariner's Curse, Riptide, draw a card, kill your thing, play like it feels like playing Avatar of Air where I can't attack anything without dying. So when they get that whole loop going, it's just a nightmare. And then Pathfinder, it's just get 6 cards, like you get your early cards so fast and so consistent. Like maybe Pathfinder should be like top of B tier because you can't control where your site's going, and we've talked about how important it is to play where to play your sites.
I would put Pathfinder and Battle Mage in the roughly same. Like in my head, I see them as kind of similar tier level. They're like slightly like the dark horses, but they can win like very
I don't think
very
that
easily.
C and B tier mean that they can't win because like it also so Zack Attack, right? Zack Attack is one of the better players that like is out there, right? And he plays Pathfinder to strong effect very frequently. I think that Zack Attack is nutty, but I don't know that like Pathfinder in the meta is like, oh, I'm against a Pathfinder, I'm scared. Do you know what I mean? Like I win against most Pathfinder decks pretty consistently on a couple of different decks, but like Zack Attack can trash me.
But because he's a good player, though, right? That's where. I mean, we've talked about that before. Like the pilot of these decks matter so much. You can play a mediocre deck and like play better than your opponent who's playing a meta deck and still win consistently.
Yeah,
because site placement and movement is such a soft skill almost of the game.
Yeah. No, I agree. And that's why I would put Pathfinder lower is because, like, on average, it's not really the most threatening deck that you're going to run up against. But, yeah, in the right hands, it's, like, a big threat. And I think similarly with Elementalist, right? Like, almost every Elementalist deck I run into, I'm like, okay, like, this is cool and unique and interesting, but, like, I win. But, like, Moth's deck is really strong against a lot of decks. So I don't know.
Yeah.
But you're right. Going into the next set, which Kevin can't talk about at all, but going into the next set, Elementalist is sure to be interesting. I'm interested to try it out.
So the other things we haven't talked about are Spark Mage and Enchantress. Like Avatar of Water and Witty Shaper are kind of like water's kind of
Water's bad.
And then I think the worst Avatar is Avatar of Fire, but because you like it's inherent card disadvantage kind of thing.
It
But
doesn't make sense to me. I think that the deck is fine, but his ability is worthless.
well, I think Flamecaller is a better Avatar of Fire.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah.
I had Flamecaller lower and Enchantress higher because I think Enchantress was so good, right? Enchantress was like a big deal for a long time, and like
Enchantress, I think, would be for me B tier at the very least.
I think so too. I think that it does get trashed by Roots, and that's a problem for it. But other than Roots, it's a good deck, right? Oh, you know what? It got nerfed with the Mulligan. That's one of the things Salem was saying was the Mulligan is really hard on it because look at those thresholds, baby. Yeah.
And I think I put it lower because it's such a hard deck to play. Like it's even harder to play than Avatar of Air.
Yeah.
Like it is so there's so many play lines, there's so many decisions, there's so many times to do something wrong. Yeah, it's a really hard deck.
I think the reason I didn't like Enchantress is because the Mulligan was so hard. Because it wasn't even like my decision trees were impossible, right? I'd like play Enchantress and you'd be like, okay, I've got this site, this aura, this spell. Like, I've only got 2 options this turn because this is way too many threshold for me to play. And this is way too, much mana for me to play. But like, it was the Mulligan, right? Like, oh, I Mulligan, so I Mulligan because I figured like this was a good enough aura to have and I'll be able to use it. But like, I should have Mulligan differently. So like, it felt like the games that I was doing as my intro games to the Avatar were like non-games because I didn't Mulligan appropriately, and I was like, oh, my hand is garbage. Like I can't do literally anything, and my top decks are garbage. And so I think you have to be very good at the deck to Mulligan appropriately to even have a game. But when you do that correctly, you can do so much, and you're oppressive.
Like Salem won events. Like he got second place season 3 or 2 or whatever it was. Like I think Enchantress is.
It's good. It's hard.
I think Enchantress has one of the best abilities in the game. Like I feel.
It's a passive ability, right?
Passive abilities are the best abilities in the game.
Passive abilities. It's also just you have like the kind of we're talking a bit about burrowing being very powerful. In the same way, you have very evasive, like basically hexproof minions in that sense. And your minions are all very well statted because, like in sorcery, power is such a big deal, right? Like compared to MTG, for instance, where like the more expensive a minion is, creature is, usually like the better the ratio the cost is, right? Like if you have a 5 cost creature in MTG, you want minimum to have 5 power, right? It should ideally have 7 power. Sorcery is kind of the opposite. It's like the more expensive it is, the less stats that the thing gets. So the fact that Enchantress just has like very like worst case scenario vanilla minions, I guess you can call it square minions, is very good. But they have square minions with some of the most powerful Genesis effects in the game, right? Like Atlantean Fate. Like imagine that as a minion. That's just broken.
That's just the best game. Yeah, it's one of the best cards in the game.
That's just like the best minion in the game, full stop, right? So that's why I think Enchantress is very good. The threshold is obviously a big limiting factor for it, but
the Mulligan did kind of hurt it. But I think that it's powerful, and I think if we're talking about like the alpha beta meta, it's still a really good deck. And like, I have no idea what's going on. People are talking about like, are we going to ban Roots? Are tournament organizers going to soft ban Roots? Are they going to put some sort of restriction on Roots? Like, if Roots goes away, I think Enchantress comes back. Because I think that's the biggest like hindrance to it. I think that Mulligan is hard, but maybe they just you don't just keep Zalem's control list, right? Maybe you adjust your thresholds a little bit here and there. But I think that the fact that Roots not only wipes your mana, but wipes your threshold. Right, I negate your because like if you get these cards, you have to get your threshold right. So you mulligan aggressively to get your threshold right, and I'm like, I'm gonna blow all that up. Top deck your threshold. You're like,
3 fire sites in a row. Or
guess I lose. Yeah, it's over, right? So like I think that Roots is a very detrimental thing, specifically for this avatar, because even if you can recover the total number of mana, the fact that you just have to top deck perfect threshold in order to play any spells is not possible.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I was because I never played Roots, and I never really played Enchantress, so I never knew what that matchup was like. That's interesting to know.
So similarly with anybody else, you pop Roots to get like tempo advantage into like if they overcommit to the board, amazing. With Death Speaker, it's so that they don't get to 6 mana. I'll pop if they've got nothing on the board because I'm stopping you from drawing 3 extra spells or Djinn or whatever. Enchantress, I'll just pop when I've got it because your threshold's screwed. Like if you have no sights in hand, I'm popping Roots, regardless of what I've got.
Yeah, I see.
So I'm like I'm just gonna negate. It's just like negating all the spells in their hand.
Right. Yeah.
That's an interesting point. Like you're not attacking mana, you're attacking their threshold. Which
Everybody else, I
hadn't really thought of that.
It's just because the deck is impossible to play without great threshold. I mean, like your removal isn't bury. Your removal is polymorph, right? I'm just like, blow up all your stuff, play my Amazon Warrior, like, and then if the first site they play isn't water, I'm like, oh, I've won. Like, there's no way I'm losing.
Yeah.
I guess they have Disintegrate too, but still, like it's hard to lose that game. So yeah, I pop.
Yeah, I see.
Most of the time, I would sculpt my hand to get an Amazon Warriors to win, but I'll pop for any minion I have will be good enough to win against an Enchantress if they're gonna get threshold screwed.
Yep.
Yeah. But get rid of Roots. I think it's back.
Here's another one we haven't talked about is Flamecaller.
Have you played against this?
I've played against this. It's really good.
I haven't.
It's good.
Fascinating.
Yeah, I like saw this online once, and I was like,
"Oh, they run the earth just for the common sense."
Yep, and then they're also playing. So Roaring Turkey is currently top 8 in the league.
Really?
Top cut right now. Yeah,
awesome.
I'm pretty sure with this deck, he's playing Rift Valley as Summoning Sphere. Because Summoning Sphere was so much of a dead card mid to late game.
That's fair and interesting and okay.
It's
this is my 3 blind mice moment or 3 blind men moment. I'm like,
yeah.
I have no idea what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
So I
Doomsday
think Flamecaller needs a buff where Death Speaker can play out of your opponent's graveyard. I think Death Speaker should be able to choose which graveyard it throws a firebolt from.
Flamecaller.
If your opponent is playing fire, it's a nice counterplay to your opponent playing fire, and it gives a buff to this. But I think that would put this up to like a mid A tier kind of style deck, where this.
Yeah, banish all minions from a graveyard, deal X damage, where X is the number of fire threshold.
Yeah. Yeah, but where this deck loses is where a lot of non-passive ability avatars lose. Is like Hard Advantage. But I think this is the best Flamecaller list I've seen.
That is so interesting. Would love to play against it sometime, yeah.
Yeah. I feel like this would be very good against birds.
Pit Viper, not bad against birds.
Because you're heavy fire.
Good.
Yeah, like the big
Kobolds.
fire things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's very interesting.
I gotta love that I see a Doomsday Prophet, and I would love to see it pop off.
Oh, hold on. Where'd it go? 3 colors. Doomsday Prophet.
Yeah, because it works with your avatar.
Yeah, it works with Avatar. I got Doomsday Prophet for 8. It was I was like, what is going on? Why am I getting shot with an 8 power fireball? It was really cool.
Yeah, upgraded
That's
Avatar
really cool.
Fire for sure.
Yeah.
You wanna talk about
It's really
tapping and
cool.
dealing 8 to your opponent? Should we talk about Kebmo's Spark Mage?
Sure. Let me pull it up.
I
You
think
talk about it.
I think Spark Mage is really the potential to be good is there. I think that it's going to get better with each set as long as we continue to get cantrips like Blink, and things of that nature. Something that's like do a thing, draw a card for cheap. If we ever get like a 1 mana draw, like do anything, draw a card, I think that's going to be insane for this Spark Mage because it's kind of a storm deck, right? It doesn't even care what you're doing. Like sometimes he'll be like teleport in place, tap, deal you 2, right? Like he's just trying to cast spells. He's trying to storm off. So I think that its potential to be really good eventually is really there. I was telling a story before we started recording of my first game versus Kevmo. He like just popped off so hard that my deck did everything it wanted to do, and he said, "I don't care," and just killed me. I was like, "Okay, Amazon Warriors in your backline, start hitting you for 5," and he's like, "Yeah, ignore that. Play Lightning Bolt, deal you 3. Play Chain Lightning, deal you 2. Tap, deal you an extra 3." I'm like, okay, I mean, like, I just took 8 damage in one turn. That kind of sucks, but then no problem. He's like, cool. Browse, blink, lightning bolt, tap, deal you 5. You're at door. I'm like, wait, what? Like, I've got like Amazon Warriors, Unicorn, like something else powerful. I'm like, why are you ignoring me? No, kill my minions. He's like, nah, I don't care. Just do all the things. Dome you in the face, you lose. And I was like, holy shit. But like, it doesn't do well against life gain, and you have to draw relatively well because there's not enough cantrips to just get through your deck consistently. So if you unfortunately draw like minion, you're like, oh, I have no extra card draw. I'm up in your face because I have to be like nearby to do that stuff to you. I guess I lose. Kind of like how Battle Mage, right? When you run out of gas, you're just dead. So I think that this deck, I like B tier for it, because it has the potential to pop off and win kind of regardless of what your opponent's doing, as long as it's not healing. Right? Like, doesn't matter what you're doing, right? Geomancer, don't care about your blockers. Avatar of Air, I don't care that you're hitting me for like 6 now a turn. I'm hitting you for 8 to 10 a turn. Like, its upside is insane, and it just wins. And I think that its floor is what keeps it from being an A tier or an S tier, is because it's
similar
not that
to Battle
consistent yet.
Mage, I think, right? Like it has that kind of, if it has the nuts, it can.
But Battle Mage
just
actually
go in,
does
I
care
thought.
what you're doing, right? Like if you have a 4 power minion, all right, like I'm in trouble.
Right.
This is just like I don't care. I don't care. If you're not healing, you're just dead. If I draw right, it doesn't matter what you're doing.
That's fair.
Kevin, I was playing your Urge list against this list here for my buddy at the local game store. And we were, our first game, we were double death's door. I'm like,
Wow.
what just happened?
Yeah.
I'm playing like a meta Birds list. Like, what? And he was able to like Lightning Bolt and Chain Lightning and just effectively deal with everything. And then still like just flank. I think Flanking Maneuver, Kevmo needs to add Flanking Maneuver. But draws a card, moves you, exactly what Spark Mage wants to do. Flanking Maneuver up into my business and then start pinging. I was like,
Yeah.
But in, like the next game, I was like 20-0, where it's just like it didn't do the thing it wanted to do. So
Yeah, the consistency's not there, but the upside is actually kind of insane.
yeah.
That's really cool.
And then mechanism blanks haunts.
Yeah.
My haunt just sat in the corner for game 1, and I was like, oh, okay.
Kevmo just he lost his game in the top cut, and he told me it was because he played Kythera Mechanism, and the following turn his opponent played Kythera Mechanism.
Oh, that's so sad.
Yeah, because it's basically a world enchantment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's all the avatars. Anybody got anything else?
Yeah, the water ones, ignore them.
Whatever.
That's fair. They're bad. They're not
I
as
know
bad as
Avatar of
Fire.
Water. I know Drew has like an Avatar of Water, like play a bunch of minions, teleport, Alpha Strike kind of thing.
Yeah, total
It's kind of
recall or
fun.
whatever.
Yeah. Wave Shaper just seems like a bad control
So
avatar.
I think there's some interesting Wave Shaper lists that I
For
played
sure.
against. This is Season 4 League. And against minion heavy decks, if they have a Maelstrom like early, like, oh boy, like they just lock you down. It feels like Chains of Prometheus
Mhm.
Like,
But it's a tap ability. It's not a passive.
It
Like,
is.
that's true.
Passive
That's
abilities
true.
are the best, but I'm curious. So okay, Wave Shaper and Avatar of Water suck. Okay, fine. What if and this is purely hypothetical. Let's say like set 2 isn't Arthurian Legends, it's something completely different. What if the water cards were really good? Do Wave Shaper and Avatar of Water become good, or do like, Seer and Death Speaker and something else that are just like running water, are they just better? Like,
are
do you think
better.
that the abilities of Wave Shaper and Avatar of Water are bad, or do you think it's their abilities are good, but the water in Alpha Beta was like not even bad, but not like
Not what you want
not
to
as
be
good
doing
as
to win.
Fire, Earth, Air, right? If we get better water cards, do you think these avatars are like now rising to the top, or do you think that other avatars that aren't necessarily tied to a threshold are just going to be better?
Yeah,
I'm
I
curious.
think Kevin's. I see a
Kevin
smirk on
Kevin is
Kevin's
doing
face.
a
Look at that
he's doing
smirk.
hey, but we're talking purely hypothetical. You can't do that one. Okay.
No.
I'll
All
speak
right.
to this one. I
Yeah, I
think
want to hear what
Avatar
you
of
say.
Water, like you have some movement with it, which is cool,
And it
but
floods.
and it floods, which is it's not nothing, but it's a tap ability, so it can
Mhm.
only be so good.
Mhm.
And then Wave Shaper is also a tap ability, but without movement. And movement in this game wins you games.
Yeah.
If you don't have movement or card draw, I think you're just already kind of lower.
So you think, and now this is obviously Kevin's not going to answer, but which has 3 tap abilities, you're like, meh. It's a tap
I
ability, and it doesn't give you movement or card draw.
I think it's mad.
Okay, I agree. But I was curious.
I appreciate the devil's advocateness.
Yeah, no, I was curious. All right, Kevin, we'll move off of these things.
Yay. Back to alpha. All right. Back
Hell
to
yeah.
alpha.
Back to
Yeah.
alpha. Yeah. Do you have
Uh,
any final thoughts? Do you kind of agree with where these things landed? I mean, I still think that. I guess you moved Battle Mage down. Elementalist. I don't know if that's A. I think Moth is really good at the game.
all right, that's fair.
I
I
don't know
think
that Elementalist
Elementalist
is
can be
A.
Elementalist is probably top of B tier then.
I think it's gonna get better, but
I think I just have too narrow of a viewpoint. Like everything again is like through the lens of how does it match up in the games I played against it.
Mhm.
But I will agree with most of this assessment. I think
Mhm.
Enchantress is definitely a B, a solid B at the minimum
yeah,
though.
I think it's good. I think it's better than C. I think that Roots destroyed it, but like to be fair, Roots you can't even play it in Australia, right? Like, and everyone else is talking about it being kind of rough. So I think it's if it stays in its current iteration, then I don't know. We'll see. I have no idea what the 200 and change cards are from AL, but I think Enchantress will be able to make a comeback.
Cool.
Yeah, because like I mean, yeah.
Well, you
This
guys,
will be a Roots
I like
podcast.
my rankings here.
Mhm.
Elementalist top of B, and then Enchantress bottom of B. If
Yeah,
I would change anything
I
after
think so.
these conversations.
Yeah.
I think yeah, everything we discussed today reflects my personal experiences playing League Season 4. I haven't, unfortunately, been able to play much Season 5, but I know the meta is continuously like changing and shaping, which is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
I want to ask like a question that's like more for fun though, but like irregardless of power level,
Mm-hmm.
which deck have you guys played that was the most fun? That you play like, oh, this is the deck I want to keep playing.
Avatar of Earth Fire. It's
Fire,
exactly
yeah,
what I want to do. Just
yeah.
a big old Timmy, just punch.
Yeah.
I just want
And
to.
that's
I
the
want to
deck you
hit
made,
things.
right? That's the deck
Yeah,
you
like
made.
that's the most fun I've had. Is just like
Mhm.
punching with a big avatar. Yeah.
So begrudgingly, I'll say birds, but there is a really fun. I have I call it what is it? Death's Jacuzzi. I have a
That's
combo.
jacuzzi. What is this?
I have a combo list that is it's Death Speaker, and every 2 to 3 card combo in the game, and it runs.
Oh.
It runs the Shell of Ruins. So I draw.
Mhm.
I've never drawn less than 22 cards in a game. I think I lost relatively
Wow.
quickly and only drew 22. So it's the Shell of Ruins. Should draw through
Mhm.
your deck. It runs Eric's Curiosa with replication to crack the
Mhm.
replication or crack the copy to tutor whatever you
Mhm.
want.
Mhm.
So it just is like, okay, cool. This game I'm monk comboing. This game I'm Theus muzzling you. This game
Ah,
I'm
that's so cool. That's so cool.
It's so fun, and it's honestly it's got like a 50% win rate. Like it's pretty good.
Wow.
But the truth is, I can win if I had infinite money. I could probably get it up higher. But the
You
problem
don't need to
is
replicate, right?
it's the fact that the easiest win con to win on the spot is Theus muzzle combo. But when they get your turn, even though you cracked your token copy of Curiosa, when they get your turn, they can rip your real one.
Yeah. I mean, you have infinite money. Do you even need replicate? Just rip a real one every game, right?
Yeah, dude, because you can get both parts of the combo.
Oh,
You're just like, dude,
that
grab
makes
Theus,
sense.
grab muzzle, hell, let's go.
Oh, good point. Oh,
So-
good point. Yeah.
But I've won plenty of games just going for Jin combo too, because it runs Jin combo. It runs every combo. It's so fun, but it is so fiddly.
To that point,
that does sound fun.
CJ, like Kevin, me and CJ did a tier list of the spoiled cards earlier today, and we had very different evaluations on certain cards. Like I put some like as S and he had a D, and he had an S and I had it as C. And it's just because our play styles, he's so
That's so
focused on
different.
combo,
Different.
and I'm like minion aggro punch you, and it
Mm.
was hilarious.
I saw
Yeah, that's great. That's really good.
that 3 mana 3 power fire minion. I was like, where did you place this? And I think I had it as like C or D, and he's like S, and I was like, what?
Wait, which minion is this?
It's the 3 mana 3
Ruffians.
power. Yeah.
The
Starts with H?
Can't be
Ruffians.
defended.
Yeah,
Can't be defended.
Ruffians. Yeah, I love the art for that card as well.
That is my
Yeah.
favorite spoiled card so far.
I
It's
was like, wait, what? I love it though.
Yeah, no, that's really awesome, and yeah, I think again the diversity in the meta so far has been like super awesome for players, like and collectors as well. But like, it's something I really like about Sorcery is like the avatar design means that from the get go you have that command experience where you have like that character you're almost attached to. It's like, oh, I want to make this cool person, like, and I want to make a deck that makes them really good.
Yeah.
But even within each avatar, like there's so many different potential kind of builds, because like you're not restricted by like color identity like an MTG. Netrunner, they do similar things with like what's called like IDs, but those also have like color identity, right? Or like Flesh and Blood, they obviously have like the heroes, the champions, but those have also pretty hard deck building restrictions. And one thing I really like about Sorcery is like it really embraced that old school vibe where it's just like
Have at it.
have at it, like very forgiving rule set, but it all creates a very deep and like what's it called? Just like a lot of the complexity. It's emergent, right? It's emergent complexity. It's not forced like it's not forced like complexity.
Yeah.
Which is really cool.
To your point there, Kevin, about like identifying with an avatar, I don't know who's listening, but Sorcerer, I feel like almost detracts from that. Like I sit down across from a sorcerer,
You don't know what
it can
it
be
is.
literally anything.
Yes, yeah, it's
And like you sit down from a Death Speaker, there's a lot of Death Speaker things, but they're all doing Death Speaker stuff.
Yeah.
You set the Avatar of Air or Avatar of Earth, like you know these identities. Sorcerer doesn't have an identity; it's just card draw.
Generically good. Yeah, my identity is I'm just pretty good at this.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, like that is its own identity. Kind of like
Yeah.
how Mortals is like, it's like, what's your identity? I am the everyman. You know, I'm just a normal person. Don't mind me. Which I agree, like, is a bit
Unite.
dissatisfying. But I know some people that really like playing sorcery because they love drawing cards. Well, good for them. They get to draw
like Death
some
Speaker.
cards.
I know.
Hey, listen, I do love drawing cards, and that's why I honestly built probably 7 or 8. Like, I played against PK's Ruins deck, and I lost to it, and I was sad. But then I was like, you just drew 20 cards. And I just took the shell to that and made like 5 different decks. It's so fun.
Yeah.
Drawing cards is great.
I hope PK comes back soon because I feel like he was like
heard-
secret man behind so many.
Oh,
awesome
he shaped the
decks.
meta. He really
I
did.
completely agree. I literally told
Yeah.
everybody, I was like, anytime I played any deck, they're like, oh, what's this deck? Ah, it's just some list I got from PK. Oh, this is just some list I got from PK.
Sandworm is here.
So, yeah, Sandworm.
This is because of PK.
Yeah, Sandworm being in my Ragnarok is because of PK.
Mhm.
I was like, oh, I hate cave trolls, but they're a necessary evil. He's like, why not Sandworm? I'm like,
Yeah.
why not Sandworm? PK, why not Sandworm?
The only suggestion that I have not even like begin to agree with him on is the Thunderstorm for AOA. Listening
It's like a
PK, I
free
still
mana.
disagree. Thunderstorm sucks. It's terrible. I don't like it.
You're mad,
But
man.
honestly, it's probably like decent.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I guess non-mobile avatar. I guess so. The thing about your birds list is just it's one of the most consistent decks I've ever played against. I think that Thunderstorm is a higher variance card,
Yeah,
and
it's a
so
high
it's got high upside. It's got like so when it feels good, it feels amazing. But like, yeah, you might be against Pathfinder, and they're like, I just move away. You're like,
You spent 4 mana
Yeah.
to deal 3, maybe.
Yeah. So like,
Not
I get that.
Oh, it's just, 4 mana is so much for this deck. 4 mana for this deck is like, that's like
That's why I used to beat you.
the most mana. Yeah.
I used to beat you because you used to run 4 mana
Yeah.
spells.
Yeah.
I want to ask about Withering Hero. Like,
Mm.
it seems fine. Like, is there
4 power.
not a
airborne.
better 4-drop?
It's just a 4 power airborne
Flyer.
minion. That's
Yeah.
it.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I just
If
like,
another
every time I draw, it's like I don't really get this, but okay.
I have a hypothesis, Kevin.
Mm.
My
Mhm.
hypothesis is you give literally 0 shits about the text box other than airborne, and so that if there was a 4 power for 4 mana airborne for 1 threshold, you'd play it over this for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's literally just the body.
Unless the text box under is like a downside, right?
Yeah. Well, that's
But
why you
yeah,
play
like-
Hast Eagle, right? Because you just couldn't get a
Oh,
5th
yeah.
Palabre Bats.
Oh no, 5th Plume Pegasus.
That's what I meant.
Husky goes the 5th. Yeah, Plume Pegasus. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. 100%. Husky goes like in my deck. I would argue strictly worse than Plume Pegasus, which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
But I have literally never used its ability before. Literally, I've literally never used it before.
I've used it once to deliver my
that's funny.
Highland Falconer. I was like, I don't know, let's just like pick up the Highland Falconer, chuck the eagle, drop him off, and let's go to damage. Let's go to war.
Yeah. I like my Highland Falcons in the back row, funnily enough, unless I'm going like ultra hard aggro, just because they are always good for like bouldering if you need to.
Boulder. I just throw them away like they're worthless.
They're good for like boulder shenanigans.
Yeah. Okay, that's good to know. No, I would use them as like oh, they have something I really need to get rid of, like Palabre Bats and Falconer into it to trade up.
Yeah,
This is why you're better than me.
No, Falconer is good for trading if they have annoying chump blockers, right? Like if they have like a stupid apprentice wizard, you're like, I want to punch you with my bird. Then like, all right, go in, you have a job, and then they trade, and then your bird can swing. But otherwise, like they're pretty good, just like sitting in the back.
Yeah.
For boulders.
But there's also a major difference between you and me, and Bruce and I played a bunch of games where I was playing Avatar of Air, and he was playing a sorcerer list or something. And he was like, but I bet you have Boulder. And I went, nah, only Kevin and PK draw Boulders. And he's like, but what if you have Boulders? I'm like, no, literally Kevin and PK draw Boulder. I'm playing the same deck. They draw Boulders all the time.
Yeah,
I never draw Boulder. And I didn't.
Skill issue. Skill issue, CJ.
I agree.
Skill issue.
No, I agree. And I think we played like 4 games. I drew 1 Boulder in all 4 games. And I was like, I guarantee you, though, if the exact same scenario, if it was Kevin or PK, they'd have drawn 5 by now. In 1 game, they'd have drawn 5 Boulders.
I remember when I was earning this game and I was playing against Jackson, and every game it felt like he had Boulder. And it was just so annoying to play with.
That's because he's good at Avatar of Air. It's a skill issue. The better you are, the more often you draw Boulder.
Yeah. Well, no, I think it's like a devotion thing. It's like the more you play Avatar of Air, like she rewards you by gracing you with good draws.
Yeah.
But if you like play too many different avatars, it's like no, I'm not giving you the Boulder. You can get like a I don't know what's bad.
Trinket feels
I don't know,
bad when
just
you
a
have no
naked
minions.
bats or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing that I will say, going back to the grapple shot thing, that you were talking about, Bruce, it is OP, but it's fun. It's a fun card.
Yeah, no,
It's a
it is.
fun
It is
design.
very
Right?
swingy. Like
Yeah.
game design, sorcery. It is very swingy.
Violence is
It's fun.
OP, but it feels
Yeah.
good.
Yeah,
It's like very sorcery, you know. Grapple shot, that's like uniquely a sorcery card, right? So I'm glad that of the OP cards, like it's up there, because it's like when you see it in like in a game, and it's always like, oh, you know, they did the thing. Whereas like Root Spider, for me personally, I'm like,
It feels terrible. Root Spider feels
Yeah.
so bad to lose against.
it's like
Yeah.
yeah.
no,
Yeah.
I remember playing against the new players and like putting a root spider underneath my avatar and explaining, can't really defend this, and I feel kind of bad.
Look at his smile though. Look at his smile though. He's like, I remember being like, you're fucked.
Like they're playing with their like beta like precon, and Bruce is just like running his like
I'm not that
list, just like
mean.
Tournament Welcome to hell, noob.
Play it, man.
Yeah.
No,
God, I love it.
that's nice.
All right. So, any final
Sweet.
thoughts, or we kind of crushed this? Let's play some real sorcery now.
Really want to emphasize like everything I talked about is purely my perspective as a player back when I was playing in League Season 4, my experiences playing Constructed, and purely my opinion, you know, like if I think a card is good or bad, that's just like, I have a very specific play style. I love Out of Air, as you know, and it's in that context, you know, like,
this isn't like definitive, like
100%. This is all purely subjective, like like, and that's the thing about games, right? Like it's very subjective. Like there's never really one way to play the game, one way to enjoy the game. So if you enjoy Root Spiders, you know, power to you.
Power to you. Just don't play against me.
Don't play against me. I'm always like, no, I my stuff, it's disabled, and then but okay, cool.
Yeah,
Thank you.
but anyway, thank you guys. I appreciate this. This has been a blast.
Awesome.
We got a little bit rambly. Maybe I'll just like title it a podcast where we kind of talk about the meta.
Yeah.
But like, I'm in. This is fun.
I think we talked about some cool stuff. I
Yeah.
think everybody's very passionate about.
I had a good time.
It's nice to like see that kind of like retrospective, right? As AL was coming up, just like, because I mean, you said you started playing in like what, February? Like I started playing seriously around that time as well, right? Like Season 4 was when I first started playing like Constructed.
Did I start playing before both of you?
Yeah.
Like I was on Discord pretty actively before beta.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh wow. Really? That's crazy. Yeah. Definitely for sure. Because I only started playing around Season 4 League. So.
Same. That's how I got. It's like got good to like in prep for like the Courtesan Cup. Honestly, like I had learned about the game. I started reading about it. I ordered the first boxes. I think it was sometime in January. They arrived who knows when. And then I went to the Courtesan Cup qualifier in Baltimore, having played 10 games.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Because I remember being
I did back the Kickstarter. So I did play last year. But like I was just playing with my partner and a few friends, like the pre-cons, you know.
Not actively like really paying
like
attention.
I played my first like online game, I think against Hane.
Me too.
And I was like,
Hane was my first online game.
Oh, Hane, I know you. Hi, I'm a fan of your stuff. He's like, cool. And then he beat
me. Get wrecked.
I remember doing that with like playing against Salem and not being able to win against Salem and just going like, what am I supposed to do against this?
Yeah.
To some background, I think Sorcery has made me a better TCG player overall. Yeah. As like, I didn't play Magic competitively because I just didn't like the vibe. I didn't like the people like rules lawyering kind of like,
we call it big magic
very
energy.
Spiky.
Yeah, big magic energy. Yeah. But like Sorcery really taught me the value of like a value deck or a mid-range deck, or like how to evaluate cards better, or like these things do why you get value, you do something. Like it really taught those aspects of
skills.
TCGs.
Yeah.
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 That's
no,
awesome.
It's a really fun game. I'm I'm all in. I hope it keeps doing great because this is a blast.
No, yeah, no. This I don't think this is not going anywhere.
I
This
agree.
sorcery could stop tomorrow, and I'd still be playing alpha beta for the next
That's
5 years.
Yeah, it's a blast. All right, guys. Thanks for
Awesome.
joining us.
Thanks for the chats. Yeah, I'll catch you guys around.